All right, I will call to order the Planning Commission meeting on October 19th at 6:34. First up is approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Randy, seconded by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, those are approved. I don't have any public appearances for a non-agenda item. Everything that people are here for is on the agenda. All right, seeing nothing. Agenda review, anything to change at all?
No changes for me.
All right, then we can get going right away. First up is architectural design review of 2800 Woods Hollow Road. I believe there's some people online. And so if you would like to, tell us what you're doing here, that would be great.
Sorry, couldn't find the unmute button there. Steve Wellenstein with Ramlowstein Architects. And we're working with Promega on adding an addition to the RDC building. It's Research and Development Center building, sort of Promega's original corporate headquarters. The addition is to expand two areas of that building. One is an existing fermentation suite that's been in the building since the beginning of Promega, and the rest of it is to expand other elements that are actually in a building in Madison right now that we're gonna, in the city of Madison, that we're gonna bring to Fitchburg. And the rest of the building will be renovated into additional lab space for the corporation. And we're really doing this to mimic the existing exterior of the building, adding a new dock, warehouse space, and we have one additional thing that we're doing on the facade, and that's to allow us to bring some tanks into the building in one location, adding a new window that goes down to the floor. So we can take a tank in and out in the future.
Great. Anything else, or should I go to staff report?
I think that's probably it.
All right. Sonia, staff report, please.
Architectural design review is what we're looking at on the agenda tonight. So that would be the site approval for the addition as well as the architectural elevations. The site plan that I have shown here just for reference is East Sherrill Parkway and Woods Hollow, and the building is on the northwest end of the site. Addition shown here, so not too visible from public roadways, kind of tucked behind there. Staff's identified no concerns, use is consistent with the zoning, and materials match. So recommendation is for approval with 4 standard conditions of approval.
All right. I don't have anyone from the public to speak, so any questions or comments from Planning Commission? No?
I move approval of architectural and design review for 2800 Woods Hollow Road with 4 conditions as noted.
Second.
Sent by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Thank you. All right, next is public hearing and consideration of conditional use permit request CU 241021. Mary Ann McKenzie is here. If you'd like to come up and tell us what you'd like to do, that'd be great.
Hi, we're applying for the rural event venue conditional use permit to expand the existing use from agricultural activities for the Four Winds Barn to also a wider range of activities that don't necessarily pertain to agriculture.
I believe I saw in there no monster truck rallies or anything like that.
Right, I know, I got a little carried away, but it's like, what won't I do? Yeah.
All right. Staff report?
This request is for a conditional use permit under a new ordinance that was adopted a couple of months ago, which would allow non-ag events to be held. in such a situation. So this is the existing barn on South Fish Hatchery Road that was recently rehabbed. The existing uses right now are only permitted to be ag uses. This conditional use permit would allow weddings, corporate events, as outlined in the application materials. The application does note that proposed hours of operation are 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Plan Commission might want to ask questions about, when anticipated weddings would be held, what might exactly happen at 7 a.m. on a Monday or a Tuesday, if you have those types of questions. Otherwise, staff hasn't identified any concerns in terms of, normal wedding hours on weekends. There aren't any adjacent residential properties next to the barn, so we haven't identified any concerns in terms of like noise or nuisance. And we found that it complies with the new ordinance. I'll just point out one thing, where new structures under the rural event venue ordinance would be required to have a 200-foot buffer around the use as a shield for noise and kind of to maintain that rural character. In this case, it's an existing barn, and that waiver was built into the ordinance for this type of situation. So that's included in the conditions of approval. I'll just note for parking capacity, they do expect to have events of up to 150 people. I think the building can actually hold more, but that the events are expected to be 150 just due to layout. Applicant might want to describe that further. And some of the parking could be provided in the permanent stalls, but they also anticipate overflow parking in the grass areas, which is also allowed by the ordinance. So the staff recommendation is for approval with 4 conditions pending any other questions from the Plan Commission.
All right. Then I will open the public hearing. I don't have anyone from the public that wants to speak on this. So seeing nothing from the public, I'll close the public hearing, but open it up to questions or comments from Plan Commission. Yeah, Ed.
I wasn't at Ag and Rural today. Randy, what's the recommendation there? Were there any concerns?
There were no concerns, excuse me. None at all.
Okay.
Moved right in through.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Or a motion?
Yeah, I'll move approval of conditional use 2410-21 with the 4 conditions as noted.
Second.
All right, seconded by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. Thank you.
Yay, thank you.
All right, moving along to public hearing and consideration of CDP 237921 for Fitchburg Minerals. And I know there's a number of people here for that. And this is the residential development here. Yeah, here you go, Bill. Tell us what you got going on here.
Well, that is Payne and Dolan, who owns Fitchburg Minerals, we bought the entire property, which at that time was about 300 acres and included an active quarry, and that was probably about 30 years ago or something like that. And then sometime, I think in the late 90s, there's about 60 acres that got brought into the urban service area, from Lacey Road up to the top of the hill, going to the south. And here just recently, and talking with the owners of our company, we thought, well, let's, the iron's hot, let's see if we can provide some housing for Fitchburg. And the Verona schools are envied, I guess you'd say, by homeowners here. And so we talked to the city staff, and then actually a couple of years ago, and then have moved ahead with developing the CDP. We had a neighborhood meeting, a virtual one back, first of the year? February. And there weren't any real concerns there that I can remember. And staff's been very patient with us and working through that, but I think we're all on the same page now, and we're in complete agreement with staff comments.
All right. Staff report.
Sure. Geographically, this proposed residential subdivision is located at the intersection of Fitchburg Road and Lacey Road, so the far western boundary of the city of Fitchburg's jurisdictional boundary. The proposal includes 123 residential units, and that's broken down into 95 single-family lots and 14 duplex lots. So if I show this zoning plan, it kind of shows the colors a little bit better, with the yellow being the single-family lots and duplex units being located on the peach-colored or the orange. It's not showing up too great up on the screen here. And this is the 62 acres on the northerly part of their site, which breaks down to a residential density of just under 4 dwelling units per acre. So we've found that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which calls for low-density residential in this area. And then the urban service boundary goes all the way down to here and encompasses, this will be platted as an outlet for future development and would also be low-density residential. This would be at a future phase. Our understanding is that due to topography challenges, this isn't really economically feasible at this time for development until the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood were to develop, which is located just south of this acreage that's in the urban service area. So some of the concerns that we had over the last couple of months, or I guess just ongoing conversations, were regarding the street network, and we really wanted to ensure that all of the traffic that's coming from this subdivision onto Lacey Road, as well as the future South Stoner Prairie neighborhood, had adequate street network to get up north onto Lacey Road. So when we looked at this in the past, we had the Rock Ridge Road intersection, and we've been working with the applicant to make sure that this Legend Rock Road intersection would also be feasible. So they're showing that now, and future preliminary plats that will be submitted will be consistent with that. They're also showing their parkland dedication here with, I think, 15 total acres. This area is the flatter, more active park space that's proposed with 3 acres in area. This did go to Parks Commission for initial review. And then when the preliminary plat is submitted in the future, some additional detail will be worked out, including what type of path might be required along Fitchburg Road, et cetera. So the staff recommendation here on this comprehensive development plan is for approval with 4 conditions, and those are all standard as listed in the staff report.
All right. I will open the public hearing. I do have Clay Russell who would like to speak. You can go to either side, one of the other microphones. All the microphones work. So if you want to go on one of the sides. Or...
Okay. Well, I didn't know I'd be first. At this point, I'm opposed, but not, I'm willing to change my mind if I have more information. But, and I have no problem with somebody making a profit on the sale of their property, even though in my case, I'll lose the view of deer in the cornfield if this gets approved, but I can handle that. I do have concern about especially Fitch-Verona Road, since half of it's owned by the town of Verona. And do they have the money and willingness to pave their side of the road if this goes through? And maybe you answered it, but I don't understand that drawing. How many roads off Lacey will there be? And then on lot sizes, I know that, I guess, from what somebody just told me a little while ago, you have lot sizes that are approved 10 feet on each side so that the houses are 20 feet. Maybe I'm old school, but when I was growing up, we liked to have an actual yard. And I'm wondering if this does get approved, if you can change the side yard measurements from maybe 20 to 25 feet on each side so that houses are 40 to 50 feet apart instead of only 20 feet apart, which makes it look like a checkerboard, like some of the other homes off of Seminole and Lacey that I see over there. If you did that, obviously, whoever the builders are going to be are still going to make a profit, maybe not as much because there wouldn't be as many homes. But that's really what my concerns are at this point, and hopefully I'll learn a little bit more as more people get up here.
All right. Thank you. And you're actually the only one that wants to speak on this item. So unless someone's in the audience that I got something wrong here. So I will close the public hearing, but open it up to plan commissioners for questions or comments. I can speak to there's two roads that are going out to Lacey Road, but they're both they would both make intersection, like a four-way intersection. So there's already a road on the north side and we're just connecting at those 2 points. I guess one's technically not a road right now. It's the entry into the quarry, but so yes, there are two roads that will be going on to Lacey, but both would be completing intersections. Other than that, other questions, comments? Yeah, Emily.
Well, first of all, I like the idea of the project. One of the things that caused me to pause, though, was seeing the amount of parkland and the amount of parkland that has that really steep slope of 12%. And I was wondering if that could be increased a bit. And then my second question was, I know that there's been a lot of flooding on like Lacey and Fitchburg, and there's like some plans to improve those areas, but is there any concern with the development schedule here that perhaps emergency vehicles won't be able to get through?
I don't know if you want to answer that. I know that there's requirements, but go
For
ahead.
stormwater specifically?
Yeah.
Right. We've had these plans kind of reviewed in concept by our stormwater engineer and our public works department, but I don't think there's been enough of a sort of complete stormwater management plan at this point. It's not required at this point of the application process, but some concerns there have been expressed, and the applicant's been encouraged to put that full stormwater management plan together sooner than later. Ideally, we'd like to see that when the preliminary plat is submitted. At this point, I think they've just done some infiltration test pits on the site, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, feel free.
I know that the city is also working with the developer because we have just some things as we redo Lacey Road.
Right.
We also have some needs for stormwater management, and so we are working with the developer to kind of take care of our needs as a city as well, so that we kind of combine those into one.
Okay.
I'm sure Bill or Jamie might have more to add to that.
Well, only that we have done some preliminary design on the stormwater detention basin and the stormwater pond, and its preliminary calculations per the city's ordinances show that it will have more than adequate space, because the city has also asked that possibly this would be used to take the stormwater off the improved Lacey Road. So I don't know if, because we haven't seen plans for Lacey Road yet, can't tell you that it will or won't, but that's what our discussions have been so far. And so I think we'll be in good shape. We've already done some planning at this stage.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And then in terms of the parkland, have you guys talked about expanding it a bit? When I look at the numbers and see that like less than half of it will be like active parkland, that just gives me pause.
Well, that's what the Park Commission was our agreement with the Park Commission.
Got it.
I won't say that, there's more land to develop, including the reclamation of the quarry, which could, in the future, provide quite a bit of open space.
Okay. Thank you.
I can also speak to Fitchburg Road. The staff is talking with the town of Verona. They only want to pay to make it a town road and not the level of road that, as a city, we would require. So that's where we're talking with them to figure out, how we do that and how that works, just because they don't want to make it as nice as it really needs to be, especially with the amount of traffic that's going to happen on that road. And it's frankly, City of Madison, or City of Verona, that's probably gonna drive even more traffic with some of the development they're doing with things like Costco, and that's where development is, but because it isn't in the City of Verona, it's in the town of Verona, it's something that we have to deal with on that side. So we're working with them to try and figure that piece out.
I mean, is it safe to say that we're not going to see any plating requests within the town along their side of Fitchburg Road, since they don't feel that there's any reason to upgrade this to a city road?
Well, even if they did, they wouldn't want to upgrade it to a city road because they're a township, and so they feel like they should only have to do it to township standards.
I see. I would just think we probably should make it clear that, you know, we have extraterritorial jurisdiction, and if they're not going to cooperate on this road, we are certainly highly likely to use it. I just hope they, when we're talking to them, that we're all of an understanding.
That's a different project. So.
No, but,
Yeah, but it's important.
The
I mean,
point is very good. I mean, this road is not built to handle the amount of traffic it has on it currently, which is probably why it's in such bad shape all the time.
Yeah.
But at least if it gets repaved as it is, that would be a considerable improvement. And is that slated, do we have that in our CIP and they and theirs?
We have it in ours. I don't know if they have it in theirs. I can't remember the timing. It's in like 2 or 3 years, 4 years. I can't remember the timing, but it is in our CIP.
Yeah, I mean, it needs it now.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Other comments on Rainey?
Well, it's more of a comment. I mean, you've answered the question earlier regarding the stormwater, but as long as I know that this is on the city's radar, it is important, and we've already talked about it. So I just wanted that comment to be on the record, that it's a concern of mine. I do have a question. The area to the south, and I think, Sonia, you spoke to it maybe earlier, that is all developable? That can be developed as well, where it's yellow, south of what I believe is the parks. But I'm assuming once that's developed, it would be served by streets from other directions.
Right, so this area in yellow at the
Yes.
south end, that's not shown in platted lots, that's within the urban service area currently. It's shown as part of this comprehensive development plan, but it's essentially reserved for future development. So when they move forward with a preliminary plat and final plat, that would create all of these lots for development. But this area to the south would be platted as an outlot, which means no development could occur there, and you wouldn't require the public improvements until such a time they wanted to move forward with development. So then it would be platted at that time, and that would most likely come when the area to the south is ready for development, and that area comprises 276 acres. It's the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood, and there's no neighborhood plan for it yet. But when that neighborhood planning process commences, it will identify the street network and how it would connect into the site. Yep.
And in the budget, there is money to start that planning process for South Stoner Prairie. So assuming that passes, then hopefully we'll start that next year, and that takes about 2 years, and you get lots of public input during that time.
Yep, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had preliminary discussions for a little bit now about getting the property heading down towards Grandview into the urban service area, and that we'd be happy to work with the city on achieving that and then developing it.
Further questions at all? I'm excited for the neighborhood. I know that it's in a desirable area, it's in desirable schools. The neighborhood right across the street did very well, and so I think there's going to be a lot of demand for this, and I think it's going to develop quickly. Motion, anyone? Motion, someone?
Sure, I'll move approval of Comprehensive Development Plan 2379-21 with the 4 conditions as noted.
Second.
Sent by Stephen. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that one's approved.
Thank you very
And
much.
You're up again. So this is the public hearing and consideration of the Comprehensive Development Plan 2407-21. And do you want to walk us through this one?
Sure. We bought the asphalt plant, the old asphalt plant, and it's since been upgraded, but, and about 60-some acres of property was purchased from the Haynes back in, I'm going to say the mid-'90s, because this whole site was a gravel pit at one time. And it's been since reclaimed. And then a little later on, we sold 5 acres to the Pauls for their landscaping business. And then, just before the pandemic, the city approached us and said that General Beverage was looking for a site to increase their warehouse and business, and would we be interested in doing anything? And we talked with General Beverage and came to an agreement, and then it's been moving relatively slowly because of the pandemic and everything else. But we are there now, and it's our responsibility to get the CDP. We're selling them 7 acres, and we're retaining an 80-foot wide driveway, I guess I'll call it, that goes from Cottonwood back to the remainder of our property where the asphalt plant is. And we have no intention of developing that at this time. I mean, we'd have to find another place for the plant, and it all would take time, and we've got some agreements with staff in the various departments that there are things that, such as utilities, that would have to be brought on to the larger parcel, I'll call it, at the time that we choose to develop it. So we're in agreement with that. And as far as General Beverages, so we appreciate your consideration.
All right, staff report, please.
So our agenda item is for a comprehensive development plan. This parcel is kind of tucked behind, McKee Road is located up to the north, and Lacey Road just off the map to the south. So the street frontage up in this area for a public street is Cottonwood Drive. And the primary purpose of this application is to allow the subdivision of this smaller lot, about 7.5 acres, for development by General Beverage, as the applicant mentioned. However, a comprehensive development plan is required whenever there's contiguous acreage over 35 acres. And the point of a comprehensive development plan is to make sure that any sort of subdivision like this, where you're just splitting off a 7.5 acre parcel, doesn't hinder future development of the rest of the site. Because at some point, this is planned for future development, and the future land use is identified as industrial general. So we wanted to make sure that utilities can serve future development, that a road network is feasible, et cetera. So while the CDP is rather simple, it does meet the intent of the ordinance, and they are showing reservation for future right-of-way in this area that would connect to North Stoner Prairie. And then they've also showed some basic engineering feasibility that utilities could be brought down through that right-of-way as well. One thing to note then is our typical process when we do a land division is to require that these public improvements be constructed and installed at the time of subdivision. We've come to agreement, as mentioned, with the applicant that we won't be requiring that at this time, but rather delaying it. And the reason is the asphalt plant is a current sort of legal conforming use, so we don't want to have to put that parcel into an outlot, which would make it non-conforming. And instead leave it as a lot so they can continue that use. There are also some topographical and sort of expense considerations that just would not make sense to bring this road in now in the middle of an asphalt plant. So the conditions of approval and the staff evaluation discuss this, and what we'd be looking at is when they come forward with a CSM, which would be consistent with this to create the 7.5 acre lot. There will be a separate agreement for this Lot 1 for the asphalt plant, which says public improvements would be installed in the future, and that would be either triggered by change of use, so something other than the asphalt plant, or by further subdivision of that lot. So that's when those public improvements would be required. I'll also just note that with the 7.5 acre parcel, a separate agreement needs to be approved for that as well, and the public improvements that would be required include sidewalk along Cottonwood Drive as a public road, and then various details such as utility easements and things along that frontage.
The public hearing, and I do have Deborah and John Paul who wish to speak. Either spot.
You're good there. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I've got a lot to say. I don't know how long I got, so I wrote it down so I can hand it out to Plan Commission, but there's a
Sure.
couple things I want to tap on. We are opposed to the way it's laid out, or not opposed to the development, but it's not a very good layout with a flag lot like that. We have some stormwater management issues along Cottonwood that we have brought to the city's attention numerous times, and some of it has been corrected since the bike path went in, but it's still, we've got some, when that water comes out of that stormwater management that was enclosed, and all of the theater development and Quick Trip, all that water, once it comes out of that culvert, slows down the water process, and it's backing up the drainage ditch that's across from Cottonwood, and then when that gets too full, our drainage culvert that was installed by the city goes under Cottonwood Drive, backs up, and then we get kind of flooded out for a short amount of time, maybe 4 to 5 hours, but it backs up when we get torrential rain. So we're really concerned about how this development would lay out. If the access on Cottonwood, the culvert's big enough so the water in that drainage ditch continues to go, because we really don't want to be affected by that development. So stormwater management's a really big issue for us in that area. The other thing is the flag lot. I do sit on the Plan Commission, and Verona, town of Verona, unfortunately, you brought them up. But anyways, flag lots are discouraged. It's not a great layout of property. It's not the best way to have it, and I do feel like it doesn't meet your 150-foot right-of-way for access for frontage along a city street, and I think you could lay it out better. Maybe run the lot linear instead of taking up the whole frontage along Cottonwood for a warehouse, where you could maybe get another business in there, would have frontage on Cottonwood and have better access. I just think there could be a better layout. So at this time, you know, those are the two biggest concerns for us, especially in the future. If that 46 acres in the back gets developed, all that property would dump out onto a driveway or a city street right into our driveway. And right now, we have a lot of people cutting through our driveway to get a quick access to Quick Trip, so they don't have to go up to Commerce Park and wait for the sub-zero traffic, or to wait at that stoplight on PD and McKee, because there is, you get 3 or 4 cars to get a left turn out of there, and then the light changes, so you don't get a long time to get out of there. So I just feel like we're gonna end up being like the police on traffic. And the other thing I noticed in the documentations, that you were looking at possibly vacating the cul-de-sac, and we are strongly opposed to that. We really like that cul-de-sac at the end of Cottonwood for vehicles to turn around. A lot of times the maintenance guy that sweeps the street comes down and turns around. There's a lot of bikers that have been parking down there and using that, I think it's Military Ridge and Cottonwood, Cotton Ball Path. So those were some really big concerns, and as a Plan Commission member too, I think water and sanitary sewer, you know, when it goes in, it should get up to where it needs to go, so that in the future, other neighbors are not inconvenienced again to put in more city water, sewer and stuff. So I did write this all down, and I can turn it in so you guys can get copies. Oh, the other thing we noticed recently, which we were gonna bring to the city, is the drainage ditch. There's a sinkhole happening right now, and we don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of water going in there, and I have pictures of it, so thank you for your time.
I just want to reiterate it too, especially the water issue, and where the driveway, which would in the future turn into a city street, we don't have a left in, left out, so we have to have traffic, basically a throughway on our driveway so people, customers can get to our office and leave and come out through the back and go out by the theater. We have to leave that open, but in the future, if this is going to be developed and we don't know what's going in and how many cars and things like that, if the street basically tees to our driveway, well, it's an obvious, you just cut right through and you save yourself a couple of minutes. Otherwise, we have to either put barricades up or, like she said, become the traffic police, which isn't good customer relations when you have to start telling people, hey, you gotta turn around, this isn't a way to get through. So I'm really concerned about the driveway becoming a street in the future. And then also the water issue, like she was saying as well. I have no idea how that's laid out on the plan. I just saw that they had some basins or something towards the front, basically abutting the drainage ditch over there. I think that might be too much water. I think that would have to go in some different direction. I think the drainage ditch itself is at maximum capacity, and I don't know if you could talk to Public Works on that, if they could take a look at it. But every time it rains, probably when you get one hard shower, we start getting water backing up into our, through our culvert, because our culvert is basically the same level as where the drainage ditch is. So any change in height backs water up into our drainage ditch. And as she also said, this is a little side issue, the sinkhole, where the drainage ditch is, it's just on their side by their driveway. But I would estimate that there's like 50 gallons of water per minute that goes down this hole, and if you listen, it sounds like it's going into a cave. I don't know where it's going. And then when it rains hard, then it floods that out and keeps going, but it's something that
City might want to take a look
yeah,
at.
city might want to take a look at, and if they want to talk to us, we can show them where it is.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, that is all I have for public hearing, for public comments. So I can close that and open up to planning commission comments and questions. I think I agree that we want to make sure Public Works is looking at the water and drainage and those types of things, because that it's a concern, and not related to this, but the possible sinkhole as well. Ed?
Yeah, a couple things. Bill, is it the intent to eliminate the cul-de-sac? Isn't that something that perhaps General Beverage would also want for its trucks getting in and out? I think that would be handy for everyone.
Well, it doesn't, we really don't have any issue with the cul-de-sac in terms of our business. You know, because we have the driveway going back to the
Yeah, you
asphalt
don't
plant.
need it, but General Beverage,
Right, so I guess that would be more in General Beverage's wheelhouse than it would be in ours. I wouldn't want to impose my opinion at this time on them.
okay.
So I'm sorry, I don't know how they feel about things. You probably know more than I do.
No, I other than, this is going to be another warehouse, so they're going to be bringing trucks in there too. So I would sort of imagine that perhaps everybody would be happier if the cul-de-sac stayed, but I don't know, because we don't know how they're going to lay out their building, other than the access is going to be somewhere on Cottonwood. You'd think you would just have it come off the cul-de-sac would be the logical thing.
Well, they have, I can say this much, that in some of the discussions with Joel Minkoff, he talked about being able to take smaller lift trucks and things like that back and forth rather than loading things on a truck. And so from that standpoint, he may be in favor of eliminating the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
And I'll, you know, if you need me to help talk to them about that, I'd certainly be happy to do that.
Okay.
Although you got a guy here, and Mike Zimmerman, that can probably get that done.
He knows everyone. Anything else, Ed?
The other thing I was going to comment on was the flag lot. So, you know, this is something that we always try to avoid, and the purpose of avoiding it is very clearly makes it difficult to develop around it later. This is a very different situation, because basically the post of the flag has the intent of being the future public road. So when you look at the issue with flag lots in general is not applicable here, because once the rest of the land is developed, it'll no longer be a flag lot. That's where the road's going to be. That clearly is the intent here. So to me, it makes perfect sense in this case to allow a flag lot where we otherwise wouldn't.
So you want to explain what a flag lot is? I'm not sure if everyone
Yeah,
knows.
a flag lot is where the point at the road, the frontage at the road is narrower and then extends back into what's, shaped more like the flag on a flagpole. So our definition in our zoning code is more or less describes that sort of post and flag situation exactly. And then procedurally, the person speaking was correct. Usually flag lots are prohibited, but our ordinance does allow for a waiver if approved by the Common Council. So we've included that as a recommendation to proceed with and would be included in the Common Council's resolution. And our staff analysis agrees with sort of the description from Ed Kinney here that it furthers the public purpose of allowing the road to be constructed in that location in the future. Otherwise, we typically do not recommend approval of flag lots either. The lot frontage issue as well was raised to where the 150-foot required frontage would be, and that would be measured, or lot width would be measured at the back of the post section of the easement. So they do meet that requirement at this location of the lot.
And I guess the only other thing I would add is I think it's very important that the stormwater issues be addressed in the planning of this project and finally resolved for that area. Things have gotten better, but they're obviously still a problem. I've known John and Deb for a long time. I know the issues that they've dealt with back there. They go back a long time. This is the time to fix them.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none. Stephen?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused on the concern of removing the cul-de-sac, because isn't that still a part of the city and not part of the Lot 2? Right? I just want to make sure that Lot 2 is not encroaching on Cottonwood, right? It is,
Correct.
South of
Cottonwood
where
is a
the road is
public
today.
road,
Yep.
and if any changes were to occur there, it would have to be vacated and go through a whole process with city approvals.
Any last questions or comments? Or a motion? You gonna make Ed do all the motions tonight?
All right, I'll
yeah, last one in gets to make it. Go for it.
pay the price. Move approval of Comprehensive Development Plan 2407-21 with the 13 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Sent by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay? All right, this is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up is the pre-app PDD for 9 Springs, and we've got a number of people from Royal Capital here, including Kevin online. So if you want to come up, and I'm not sure who's going to speak first. You guys can figure that out. Welcome. Yeah, go ahead and tell us what you're doing.
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Terrell Walter. I serve as Development Manager with Royal Capital Group. We are happy to be before you this evening to present the concept plan for the site that we're calling 9 Springs, roughly 33-acre site. Our team has obtained site control for the site about 7 months ago. Since then, we've been working through a ton of due diligence that had already existed on the site from the previously approved plan at Edge. Studying those plans in addition to that, looking at just highest and best use, and working through a few different iterations, pulling some of that, what we would consider institutional knowledge by engaging JSD professional services as well, and putting together what you see before you this evening. Our team, Royal Capital Group, we're a Milwaukee-based firm, but we are not strangers to Fitchburg. and have been in Dane County operating since about 2012. So happy to be here before you this evening, and I'll pitch it to my teammates to go into more detail.
Great. Well, I'll lead off. Brian Munson with Vanderwall & Associates. Glad to be here after, as Terrell mentioned, quite a bit of work to get to this stage. We're very much at the front end of the process, but when we first approached this, we started with looking at what the adopted plans called for, what the previous approvals for this property were, and try to develop a framework out of that. From there, we work closely with staff, and we appreciate the efforts of staff and the alders and mayor in terms of giving input and guidance towards the refinement of the plan. And this has been revised many times to get us to tonight, which we think takes the infrastructure components from the ad-edge development, but delivers a slightly different approach in the programming sense. What you see on the map here, a little bit harder with the colors, but it is a range of housing, commercial uses, senior housing, and a variety of open space components scattered throughout, all set on a framework of walkable mixed-use streets. The goal of this is to really have a front door feel to all of these buildings as they front out to the street network and create unique spaces within it. So we're excited to be here. From a process standpoint, of course, we're at the concept plan stage. We really appreciate feedback tonight with a goal of going back and developing a comprehensive general development plan that will guide the implementation of the process and move us further down into the details of development with the preliminary plat. So, as I said, we've really appreciated the working groups that we've had with the city and the feedback we've got. So we welcome any comments you may have tonight. And so I will turn it over to the balance of the team to talk about some of the details of where the concept is.
Hi, Eric from Ingberg Anderson. I'll talk about some of the site plan details. So the site plan on screen, the development is 20 buildings. Within those 20 buildings, we have 462 units. So we're showing the different colors for phasing and for the building types. So in the maroon color, we have 2-story townhome buildings. In pink, we have the similar townhome building, but this will be for sale units instead of apartments. And then in yellow are commercial spaces. So building 1, we have off of County Highway MM at the entry point of the site. And then at building 3, we have another retail or commercial space. Part of the senior living 4-story building, and then a third commercial space off of County Highway MM. And then we're showing the blue circles are outdoor amenity spaces, we're calling hubs. So such a large site, we'd have a variety of uses those could be used for. And in terms of parking, each unit would have 2-to-1 parking, and then we also have additional parking on street. So there's 170 additional parking spaces that are in a parallel configuration. That's it for the site plan.
And my name's Mark Ernst with Ingberg Anderson. We have maybe a few images we could show. We're very early in the development of the architecture. This is a view as you would enter the major entrance into this development. Off to the left is the one of the commercial spaces, and this kind of shows starts to show the character we're developing in the sense of scale and the variety of green space that we're developing in this. And we have a couple more images. This is the amenity area related to the senior, and here you'll get a vista, you'll see the Capitol as you come up MM, you see a big topography lift there, and then you get the view back, and so we're gonna try to really enjoy that. That's one of the amenity spaces. I think one of the team, and I think Terrell's gonna talk about it, show all the variety of amenity spaces we're trying to have, so there's kind of a reason to walk around and maybe bike around the development and into the sites or adjacent to it. I think we have maybe one more image. Yeah, just real quickly, kind of what the views might be from that amenity space. So very early in the development of the architecture, we've been really focused on getting the plans right and the preliminary plan as we've been developing it.
Hello, everybody. Kevin Yeska from JSD. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
All right. I apologize for not being there tonight. I'm 10 minutes away from City Hall, but I am fighting a cold, so wanted to respect that, everybody's health here. But did want to continue on the presentation. So as just from more of a site civil and landscape standpoint. So we will be serving as the survey site, civil, and landscape designers for this project. Again, as Brian mentioned and Terrell mentioned, we do have history on this site dating back a few years. So on page 6 of 11 there, Sonia, we do have, and we can scroll down a few. Let's kind of continue in order. So this exhibit was really meant to highlight what Brian had touched on, just that regional connection, not only north and south out of this development, but also internally. Enberg Anderson had touched on this idea of these hubs, which are highlighted in blue as these activation zones. So how are we going to move people around this site? And that next slide, Sonia, if you wouldn't mind proceeding, it just shows you some of the imagery and examples of different trail systems, sidewalks, multi-use paths, those sensory applications with, say, an aggregate path. We know that we have 50, 60 feet of grade to deal with, but we also to the west, but we want to try and move people down that space. So giving you guys just a sense of the different multi-use paths that we see coming into play here with this development that speaks to that previous exhibit. Next slide. Then we looked at breaking this master plan up into zones. And to the north, we have the townhomes that wrap around a green space. And we thought that it would be unique and interesting to almost make, let's call it a sports courtyard, a little bit more, maybe younger atmosphere, an active atmosphere, a place that people can feel comfortable to go and throw that football, play bocce, maybe pickleball court, basketball, a little bit, again, that more active vibe. Then as we transition, next slide, please. As we transition to the center of the site, let's call that the main hub. That's where the community plaza and garden really want to happen. This is surrounding the amenity center, but also the senior living facility. We think that this has a vast amount of potential. You can see from the imagery that, you're looking at a mix of age types and uses. We have kids playing, elderly enjoying the outdoors with the senior living facility adjacent to it. All of that coming together just to create a community that's just a mix of different age groups. So we're really excited to explore this space in a little bit more detail as we return. And then next slide. This slide starts to highlight that linear access path. So if you drew a line from east to west right through our master plan, we have this green corridor, which we're, trying to hold with our architectural placement of buildings. So what can that path start to become as we move people east to west through the development? We want to recognize that people are living right next to this space through this linear access path. How can we soften it, make it fun, playful, and ultimately get people out to that view that we're going to capture to the west over Highway 14? And then last but not least, we look at areas 4 and 5, a little bit more of those passive social courtyards, some elements you would see at a typical multifamily development, your grill stations, your patio spaces. Maybe we integrate a small dog park area, but this is again more of a passive zone surrounded by residential. So we welcome anybody's feedback, and I would echo the rest of the team. We really do appreciate staff's input thus far, and we're really excited to proceed.
All right, staff reports, Sonia?
Procedurally, this application is a pre-app PDD for Plan Development District. Plan Development District zoning is a create-your-own negotiated zoning district that can be proposed by a developer for a project where our standard zoning districts can't accommodate it. And then in exchange for that flexibility, the developer is required to explain how the development will result in a higher level of amenity or design than could otherwise be achieved. So this is just the first step in that process. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to indicate from the Plan Commission whether PDD zoning is appropriate for the concept. And then next steps would include the general implementation plan and specific implementation plan, as well as all of the other details like platting and stormwater and things like that. The future land use in this area calls for mixed use. It doesn't specify exactly the percentage that needs to be commercial or residential, but it does call for just an appropriate mix of different types of housing units. So they are providing rental units and owner-occupied units, different types of buildings, and then 17,000 square feet of commercial space in different locations. So overall, no concerns there, but the Plan Commission should provide feedback if they feel the proposed mix is appropriate or not. And then a couple other development details. While this is early on in the process, we do want to discuss further at future meetings with future applications the geotechnical and the soil conditions on the site. So this is a former construction, demolition, and debris landfill. And in the past, there have been settling concerns and just reports done about the development capability of the site. So the staff memo talks about some of those things. In 2018, the city was reviewing a project from Alexander Company called At Edge, and it was approved. And there were some reports done at that time for the developer. They requested a report from Numaline Testing Services, and it discussed some concerns with settling and noted some areas where settling occurred up to about a half an inch. And they had some recommendations, including surcharging, which would accelerate compaction on the site to prevent further settling. And then the city also contracted AECom with a report that discussed risk of long-term unpredictable settlement. So while I think the other major takeaway from these reports was that structures should be limited to 2 stories. So in the concept plan, most of these buildings are 2 stories. There are a few that are 4 stories, so we'd want the developer to provide us with that information as to why these specific locations are appropriate for 4 stories. We'd want a little bit more information from their engineer in response to some of these concerns, whether settling is expected or if it can be accommodated just through pilings or whatever construction techniques. We just want to make sure that that's verified as we go through the process and addressed. I think that's the biggest one. I guess for utilities, we also look at just, feasibility of, when utilities are run, if they're running into any of that construction debris and settling around those types of things as well. Let's see. Just note too that I believe some of the application includes lands owned by an adjacent property owner, Dwayne Osborne, a location on the west end of the site along Highway 14, and then also some lands on what's currently platted as Laniello Court, which is a street right-of-way. So we'd want to make sure that Osborne signs on to the application and that steps are taken to vacate that Laniello Court so that it can be included in the development. We also want, yes, our feedback from city staff as well as the mayor has been to include a large component of the residential units as owner-occupied, which they're doing. I believe it's at 52% of the units. We just want to continue understanding and working with the developer in terms of the feasibility of those actually being owner-occupied units. Are there financing concerns or anything that can be verified to kind of help us understand that that's possible, just so that we don't have any concerns later in the process. And then finally, I think as we move forward too, we'll just want a little bit more justification on the parking standards. It does appear that the residential units would all have I think you said 2 units, 2 stalls per unit, and then additional guest parking on the street. For some of the commercial spaces, it does appear that adequate off-street parking is provided, but I think for at least one of them, they are expected to use street parking. So just some, talking through that parking and what we can expect there as well. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments from Planning Commission? Good.
I'm happy to see someone else taking a crack at this site. You know, it's a difficult site to work with, so I commend you for coming forward with it, but obviously it's a very rewarding site too if you can make it work. I think Sonia really touched on a lot of the big concerns, and I know the one thing that we were never really entirely sure about that we really want to feel confident in is that settling issue and how that could affect not only the buildings, but, you know, the water and sewer laterals that are being run through there that the city is eventually going to have to deal with if there are any problems. So, you know, obviously JST has been working on that for some time and will probably continue to, so that's good. I love the mix that you're doing of the owner-occupied along with the rental. I think that's a big plus, and I also like kind of the feel of the place. I wasn't sold on the design architectural motif of Alexander's project. I think I like what I'm seeing here better.
Yep, thank you.
Stephen? Go ahead.
Sure, I'll go next. Some of the same echoes of definitely a concern with the settlement and making sure that that is a solid plan before it comes to us for any kind of approval. I was actually a little bit underwhelmed by the amount of owner-occupied versus rental. We have plenty of rentals in Fitchburg, too many if you ask me, and I would like to see more owner-occupied, which I know is going to be difficult in this kind of a setup. I would say, and I'm sure this comes down to financing, but almost all of phase one, it looks like, was the senior and then the rentals. And so we're kind of on the second half of this development is really where we're going to start introducing the owner-occupied. I'd like to see that to be a better mix. And again, more owner-occupied, the better. I really am not loving the amount of rental in this. Along those same lines, more commercial, I think, too. This is on our planning maps marked for mixed use. And if I'm looking at the total square footage here, you're probably at about 98, 99% of all square footage is going to residential. To me, that's not a very much mixed use feel. That's just medium density residential. So I think that would be some of my probably first feedback for you.
Others? Emily?
This is just a comment. I really appreciate how you guys have really mapped the flow throughout, and how you've really thought of how to bring people and make it, entice people over to one section of the neighborhood and the other. I really like that interplay.
Yep.
I can say I've worked with the team a lot and provided a lot of feedback already, and I really like, you know, where we are at right now. There was a lot more rentals originally, and based on feedback from myself and others, you know, to their credit, they are at the point now where it's at least 50-50, and that's something I push all of our developers to do going forward, but some of them don't listen. To their credit, they did listen to that, and I really appreciate that. And I like the, you know, wide mix when you have rentals, you have senior, you have these hubs of activity as well. It's close to the Capital City bike trail, so I think that's going to be really attractive. I think it's really going to turn essentially a landfill into a really attractive, cool place to live with some amazing views actually as well. So I'm excited about it overall.
I will say, just to that credit, it reminds me a lot of two neighborhoods I've been in. I think it was in Houston and then one was outside of DC. Your drawings just look a lot like it, and I like that, but almost all of their first stories were commercial spaces, which was nice. It was the restaurants that those neighbors were going to, and if you look at just right on Highway MM there, it's growing exponentially with the Terravesa neighborhood. You have a lot of residents in that area already, so it will be ripe for restaurants, small shops. I think there's a lot of commercial availability there and viability, and that is what I've seen elsewhere in the country when you're kind of looking at these neighborhood kinds of projects. Some of that does require more than 2 stories, though, as well, which, again, goes back to the settlement, unfortunately.
Yep.
Other comments, Randy?
Well, I think everybody has touched upon things that are very favorable, and I would have to echo the same. I'm concerned about the ground itself, the possible settling once the project's complete. But overall, I'm very impressed. And I do like the owner-occupied aspect, and the fact that you seem to be touching on all phases of life. I mean, you know, it's just very well diverse, and I think that's a very good component. That's all I have. Thank you.
Zach, I don't want to forget you online there. I don't know if you have anything to add or not.
Yeah, I mean, nothing new, right? I kind of echo, Stephen and Ed and the owner-occupied piece. I appreciate the split. I can kind of lean more towards what Stephen was saying. A little bit higher on the owner-occupied. Maybe, if there was a possibility to have more early on. I totally appreciate the closer to 50-50 spread. Yeah, no, super excited. This is a nice space. Like you said, Aaron, it's close to Cap City Trail, easy to downtown. I think, from a location perspective, it's a great spot. So happy to see someone, coming forward again with a development option here.
Anything else at all? All right. Seeing nothing else. Thank you very much. Hopefully you got some.
Thanks so much for the feedback.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, going forward to the public hearing and consideration of the telecommunication facilities. We got a permit request and a conditional use permit. And I don't know who the applicant is. If you could, come on up and talk to us about what you're doing here. Tell us who you are.
Good evening. Nathan Ward, Buell Consulting for Central States Tower, Verizon Wireless, and Dish Network. So the application before you tonight was originated by Verizon Wireless. It's been several years now that they've been looking for a home in this part of Fitchburg to continue the expansion and improvement of their wireless network. So essentially in the areas of McKee and Fish Hatchery Roads. The location that we've ended up upon on Delview Drive includes an application for, it's a 120-foot monopole, overall height 125 feet with the lightning rod at the tip, and ground space sufficient for a minimum of 3 carriers. In this particular case, you have both Verizon and Dish Network that are going to be willing to occupy the site as soon as it's constructed. The ground space aspect does provide for us at least enough space for a 3rd carrier. And if a 4th carrier were to present interest in the location, I think a nominal increase to that ground space could be accommodated in order to get a 4th carrier on the site. The tower itself will be designed to accommodate 4 carriers if there should ever be need for that. Above and beyond that, I think we've done a reasonable job of matching the state statute with your local regulations. Appreciates both Sonia and Lisa's assistance with that. And otherwise, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Anything you want to add?
I'm Rod Carter. I'm one of the attorneys for Dish, Verizon, and Central States, and we would urge the commission tonight to approve the applications. But again, if you have any questions, I'm here, and we have another representative of the entities here tonight to answer any questions in the audience you may have.
All right, Sonia, you want to do a staff report?
Sure. So we have, excuse me, the next 3 agenda items. First, a telecommunication facilities permit, and then a conditional use permit, and then architectural design review. These are all related to this new tower. The telecommunications facilities permit is required whenever there's a new monopole structure. The conditional use is required in the zoning district that this is proposed to be located in, which is rural development or the RD zoning district. And then architectural design review is required for any site or structural development. So we have the 3 different applications here, all related to the same item and the same request. Staff reviewed for completeness with our application, and we found no concerns. We also reviewed the applicant's response in terms of consistency with the state statute, and again, feel that it meets the requirements. Let's see, just note. The staff recommendation is for approval for the TFP or telecommunications facilities permit. All of the conditions are standard. There are 4 of them. And I'll just highlight number 4. It copies some items directly from our ordinance that the applicant has actually provided with their materials. So item A and B under number 4 would be considered satisfied, but I think just for completeness and orderliness of records, it's easiest to keep those in there. So just for the public record, for example, that's a report from their licensed engineer that demonstrates compliance, and those engineered plans have been provided already. The conditional use permit is also a recommendation for approval with just the 1 standard condition, and architectural design review as well, just 2 standard conditions. And then I just also wanted to note the applicant provided some clarifications on the application details, specifically the name of the applicant, and it might be easiest if you wanted to explain that. In our opinion, it's just an administrative clarification. I'll take a stab at it, but I think you were asking that the application currently lists Central States Tower 5 when it should say 4.
I think it's the other way around.
The other way?
4.
Yes.
And now it's 5.
Okay.
And that was a clerical error on our behalf in submitting it. Central States 5 is the correct applicant.
Okay, 5 is the correct.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, Sonia. I do think it's important to include both Verizon Wireless and Dish Network as co-applicants because their equipment that's going to be on the ground and attached to the tower should be considered all with this particular application.
Okay, we just wanted to make that matter of record as well. So that's all I have.
I can now open the public hearing. We've got a number of people that wish to speak. First, I have Norma Johnson, and after that will be Don Johnson. Norma, if you'd like to come up, and you can come up on one of the sides here and tell us what you have to say.
Good evening. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. There are health hazards with mobile tires. I did some looking on the internet, and the World Health Organization and the International Agency for Research on Cancer have suggested that having these towers close to people can cause brain swelling in the head, headaches, hearing loss, and anxiety neurosis. Living close to mobile towers is not any different from being surrounded by lead, DDT, chloroform, and petrol exhaust. Thus, they suggest that living near cell phone towers is not healthy. Now, that is not my position to suggest that they not be built. What I am suggesting is that they not be built in a residential area. I live on Glacier Valley Road, which is very close to here, and on the way over here tonight, I saw 4 locations that would be better to build a tower in than the one that is being proposed, including the one right outside here, right outside by the police, and the very large area that extends from Glacier Valley Road all the way over to McFarland. You do not have to put a tower a few feet away from houses in an area that is too small by all standards recommended for them. And so it is my position that build your tower. I like communication, but don't put it there. It's not good for the citizens of Fitchburg.
Thank you. I have Don, and then after that will be Carson.
I can't hear you.
I said Donnie can go ahead now and say what he needs to. Thank you.
Some weeks ago, we got a letter of a neighborhood meeting saying that they're going to build a tower, at least they were proposing to build one, and it would lead to all pleasant things in the city of Fitchburg. And the problem is, it eliminates most of the city. You got to get my thoughts. I'm wondering somewhat about the application process and the help that was received. If you're going to build a new tower, according to the law at least, you're supposed to first check and see if you don't need one. You have a cohabitation with another tower. Or whether they did that or not, I don't know. This has all been so secretive. I'm totally amazed that it's probably been going on for months, and we find out about a week later, and I've got to look all this stuff up and become an expert in 5 days. I mean, I'm not that bright. I'm sort of stupid, but I'm not bright. And if you construct a new mobile support structure, a construction plan which describes the proposed mobile service and equipment and network components, including antennas, transmitters, receivers, base stations, power supplies, cabling, and related equipment to be placed on or around the new mobile service. If an application is a new one, the explanation as to why the application chose this particular site. Not because it was easy to do, but what kind of effect does it have on the neighborhood and the people that live there? I've got a picture here somewhere of the radiation zone. Shadow zones near mobile phone towers. A mobile phone antenna has a radiating pattern that transmits high energy in blue shaded lobes. This emission intensity fails within distance, but the most strong part is approximately 50 meters from the radiating antenna, or from whatever's up there. 50 meters from this antenna is just about right where my bedroom is. I thank you a lot, guys. Thanks a lot. There's no reason for that tower in that specific lot. And you've got plenty of laws against it. I don't know if the laws are any good anymore since the state wants to stick its nose in it. But that lot is zoned RD, rural development. It's a whole other ball game. It's not a residential lot anymore. It's a rural development broadcast development, rural development district. Conditional uses are wireless communication, radio, television, transmitting, microwave towers, so on and so forth. Their operation, but not including buildings or for offices or studios. The parcel of land shall be in a size large enough to ensure that if the tower should fall, it will not fall on adjacent property or on the right-of-way of a public road. I have another sheet which I left at home, unfortunately. Madison, our friendly neighbor to the north, will not allow a tower built on an acreage smaller than 4 acres. This lot measures a half an acre, allows you half an acre. That's 8 times too small. And when you get into this, it's even worse. Rural development, the dimensional standards are as follows. Minimum lot area, 5 acres. Be reduced to a minimum of 1 acre on a conditional use basis. That lot is still too small. to meet their own rules. Maximum height of structure, 45 feet. I think this one is a tad bit taller. Low density district. The activity must not significantly alter the residential character of the surrounding dwelling units. The activity must not unreasonably interfere with residential occupancy of other parcels. The activity must not create environmental, safety, or health hazards such as noise, light, pollution, vibrations, electrical emissions, I say again, or other fire or safety hazards that are notably out of character with those produced by normal residential occupancy. A tower with a gigantic little red cherry on top is not meeting this particular rule. The parcel and structure must contain adequate area to accommodate the vocational activity without interfering with residential occupancy of other parcels in the neighborhood. Air conditioning equipment. This thing will have fans blowing all day long and all night long, cooling the thing. Air conditioning equipment, heat pumps, antenna height, length, so on apply. Such for the district apply. Such equipment shall not be located, earth station dish antennas must be anchored. I hope it's done that.
Are you ready to go? Are we ready to go to the next person? Do you have a little bit more?
I'm
All right, if you
for
could
something here that
wrap it up quick, that'd be great.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay. RL.
Carson, you're next. If you can go to this mic if you'd like.
Okay.
If you're ready.
My glasses aren't working too well. Anyway, according to the laws of our own community, that tower should never have been approved, even conditionally, if you read the directions first, not at their convenience. And I'd like to go back to the beginning of it, as to how did all this start in the first place, and why it was so quickly to jump to approval. I mean, looking at the place, looking at the size, looking at the location, you realize across Glacier Valley Road, there's a bunch of apartment buildings. Now, what's the difference between a row of apartment houses or a school or a hospital? There's people in there. They can be affected by this as much in an apartment as in a school. But they can't do that to a school. You can't do an apartment. Excuse me. I have some.
Thank you. I do
In
need
my
to
research, I
move.
discovered that the health hazards, and it gets to what he was just saying, are worse for children and for elderly. The causes of the brain, head, headaches, hearing loss, anxiety is more adverse on children and adults.
And how can you say that you looked around? I mean, it's so obvious. Something had to have happened, and I wish I could see how this spawned in the first place. Who was the first people to think that this lot is adequate for this tower? Was it that convenient? Was it that cheap? I don't think so. It's assessed at $108,000 for the lot, suddenly.
thank
A
you.
little bit strange.
All right, thank you. I'm going to have a few other people I'd like to give a chance to speak as well, but thank you very much.
Right, I thank you for the opportunity. I got Parkinson's.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm in a bad state, and right now I'm in a bad state because I'm angry. And I apologize for that, but
Thank you for
something's
your
got to
time.
stop this. There's so much room here, you don't need that little bit, half an acre.
All right, we got Carson, and after Carson is Lloyd. Go ahead, Carson.
Do I push a button?
You're good. Actually, it's on right now.
You can hear me?
We can.
I'm just going to read this because it's disheartening to be here in the position of venting frustration in front of the equivalent of a show trial where the outcome is pretty much predetermined. The planning committee isn't at fault. It's the system. Knowing the futility and the consequences makes one feel insignificant, small, and in a sense, paralyzed. Something can be lawful, yet be immoral or unethical. It can be legal, yet stupid and uncaring. It can be legal, and the legal person may be a jerk. But most important, it can be legal and produce permanent anguish. But the legality of it is above my pay grade. So I want to talk about right and wrong and what's the good thing to do. I went looking for Wi-Fi towers. I drove all over. And I'm aware that some of these towers, I blew these pictures up. I'd like you to pass them around, be close to them so you can get the effect. I'd have blown up more of them because I went to a lot of them, except it started to get expensive. Now, some of these towers are different than the one that's proposed, but they are all single-pole towers. And once the collocations are added onto them, they're going to eventually look like they're on steroids. All of the towers I visited were located in large, sometimes miles of industrial or warehouse or dingy settings, where employees shower after work, not before. All the towers were at least 2 miles from any home, some 3 or 4 miles from the nearest home. I'd like to repeat, large industrial and large warehouse areas. I'm vehemently opposed to the proposal because of the aesthetics relative to the surrounding homes and the aesthetics along the city of Fitchburg's premier traveled corridor. And not just the ugly, ostentatious appearance of the tower, but just as important, it would also attract further attention to the site, which has the appearance of a scrapyard along the otherwise pleasant tree-lined major corridor. If you only drive by on Fish Hatchery Road, you're not totally informed. You see, few people drive or are even aware of Glacier Valley Road's existence. And even fewer are familiar with Delview Drive. So as Paul Harvey used to say, here's the rest of the story. The Glacier Valley Delview community is comprised of 35 homes on half-acre wooded lots. And then there's the one open dirt ground plot. Directly to the west of the dirt plot is the several-acre Mickelson Woods. Directly to the north of the dirt plot is a long row of mature evergreen trees separating nice homes along Delview Drive from Fish Hatchery Road. Directly south of the plot, a thick-wooded barrier separates Fish Hatchery and therefore giving privacy to those homes. 8 or 9 homes are intimately close to the proposed tower, like the last couple that came up here. Right outside their door is where the tower would be. 7 or 8 homes are intimately close to the proposed tower. Aaron Rodgers could easily throw a football to that tower location from 8 homes. All the folks driving south on Delview, heading to their respective driveways, would be looking directly at the proposed tower. Late in the afternoon, 3 or 4 of the homes that are literally steps from the towers will get shade from the tower. Our tranquil community, which is bordered by the Promega Office Park to the south, the McKee Woods to the west, the DNR and the DNR Woods to the north, and Eagle School, a Christmas tree farm, and the Prairie to the east, our environmentally friendly, serene community. Except one site, an anomaly, a half-acre open dirt ground plot where a business hasn't operated out of in over 6 years. When it was a working lot, a fence had to be put up along Fish Hatchery at that site to block out the blight. But Parnell made the top third of the fence to be see-through. That, besides the fact that the slope grade goes up from Fish Hatchery, the blight is only moderately softened. You can see the tops and more of the mass of eclectic objects placed around the perimeter of the lot. Looking down on the plot from Glacier Valley Road, it looks much worse, like a small version of the Spawn Ranch. The grounds are kept up, but considering its relationship to the synergism of the community, that's like lipstick on a pig.
Carson, are you almost done?
I'm not quite done.
All right, if you could wrap up quick, that'd be good, because we
I'm almost
get to a few
done.
more people.
If I stood among all of you right now, dressed up like a hobo, I'd be a metaphor of what you're going to put in that area. The Wi-Fi reps and the lawyers will eventually be long gone and on to their next endeavors. But to the families living in the south part of Glacier Valley Delview community, and particularly to the families that live intimately close, as well as the hundreds and hundreds of travelers, daily travelers along Fitchburg's major corridor, this tower is going to rise like a middle finger. Now I'm done.
All right, thank you. I have Lloyd next, and then Ken after that. Go ahead, Lloyd.
My name is Lloyd Blaney. I own the property at 2862 Glacier Valley Road, which is directly across from the subject property. My family has owned that property since 1922, and I'm very familiar with...
If you might just get a little closer to the mic.
And I'm very familiar with the area. The highest point in the city of Fitchburg is on my property. this place where they propose to build this tower is far from being a high point. I'm not advocating that they suddenly decide to put it on my property, but it seems really a shame to inflict this upon the people who have to see it because, for example, the Johnsons are just a few car lengths away from this thing, and they're going to see it every day when they go out of the door. Anybody who lives in my house is in the same position, even though we're a little further away. But it doesn't seem to make any sense to me that this should be in the middle of a cluster of houses when there's available locations that have nothing around them. The other side of that hill, I think it's called McKee Hill, I don't remember any longer, is the old safety engineering property, and they could easily locate the thing near the crest of the hill on that property. There's plenty of other places where they don't have to inflict the ugliness of this upon residences. It seems to me that it's completely out of place in an area that's residential. And of course, that has an adverse effect on the value of those properties as well.
Thank you. I have Ken next and then Jim after that. Ken, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ken Wignow. I live at 2886 Delview Drive. I will have the closest view of this tower, about 150 feet or 50 yards, what we call half a wedge shot, if any of you guys are golfers. I'll see it from my back porch, I'll see it from my deck, and I'll see it from my driveway. I feel this tower will lower our property values when I do sell, but it won't lower the property taxes. I am 82 years old. I've been there 54 years, so I've seen a lot in that nice, quiet neighborhood. I feel this should not be built in a residential neighborhood, and that's what it is, because there's only one commercial lot, and that was made commercial back when we were a township and for a fence company, and that's what it was supposed to stay at. There's no benefit to any of us at all. It's going to benefit owners of the tower only because we're on a hill, and that's all they're looking for. My question is, what next with the rest of that big lot that was supposed to be temporary commercial? Will it be a gas station next? Maybe a liquor store or a fast food restaurant? I believe this has no business being in a residential neighborhood just because there's one commercial lot. Thank you for voting this down in advance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Jim.
So I'm Jim Marquardt. I am the current resident of 2862 Glacier Valley Road, which is directly east of the property we're talking about here. To echo everybody else, it's a quiet, woodsy neighborhood. It's always been that way. And I think everybody appreciates it for what it is. If you look at the green space from an aerial view, we butt up, like they say, to the fish hatchery land, the public land down there, the big marsh that will never be developable. And we're right on the edge of that green space. One of the few green spaces Fitchburg has left, and with the amount of properties you guys are approving tonight, left and right, that are taking up the green space we do have left, it's like, to me, it's kind of a slap in the face, as I used to see Fitchburg as being a community that valued green space, woods, some farmland, some more, just that feeling. but it seems that's getting lost and we're just getting turned into a cookie cutter house factory. You guys spoke of owner occupied houses earlier. You're all in favor of high owner occupancy. You know, now we're adding one place in this otherwise 100% owner occupied area to change it from what it's been forever. And I don't see a positive impact for anybody in the neighborhood. Like everybody else has said, there's other areas that they could put this that would make a lot more sense, I think, to everybody. Put it in an industrial park or even in a new area where you're having all these houses, if that's what you want. But we're kind of a woods area. I know you've seen recently, everybody should know, the housing market has been crazy. Well, the two houses, Parnell's other house that he's had for sale has been for sale for months and months and months. Most places get sold within a week or two. I think that has a direct correlation to the fact this tower's planning on being built there. And now the house next door has been available for sale for some time too. And again, I think it's sitting and not being bought because people are realizing nobody wants to live next to a giant cell tower. Other questions I have are the utility impacts. I don't think the current utilities, I'm an electrician by trade, I don't think the current utilities would handle the amount of energy consumption by this tower and what's necessary to run it. Also, the fact that it is a tower, it's clearly going to draw many lightning strikes. It's just part of the deal with the giant tower. I'm sure they'll have a backup generator. I'm sure they'll be well protected with their electrical systems, but all the residents nearby, there will be transient voltages that potentially could damage other residents' property, and that's just another reason not to build it in a small, community. I'm sure these guys have thought a lot of this through, and I know these other guys mentioned some rules that are currently appear to be ignored in the zoning of the property. And I just hope you guys can look and find a way to fight the legal battle. I mean, they have a lawyer here. Fight whatever legal battles you have to try to keep this old community together. I know you guys are all excited about these new communities, but let's not forget about the old communities. So that's all I have tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, that's all of the residents that have to speak. So I can close the public hearing, but now open up to questions or comments from Planning Commission. I don't know, I think some people might have questions. Sonia, if you want to just speak to some of the requirements about not being in a residential neighborhood, set lot size, some of that type of stuff. Do you want to speak to that quick?
Sure. Just a couple of notes. The lot that this is proposed on, as mentioned, it's zoned RD, rural development, and there's a minimum lot size. As was mentioned, I think 5 acres could be reduced to 1 acre by conditional use permit. However, this is an existing non-conforming lot, and we're not approving any land division tonight or any waiver to those requirements, so it's sort of an existing condition that we just have, and that doesn't change the ability of the applicant to apply for a conditional use on that zoning lot. I think another one of the main questions was the fact that RD, rural development, is a type of business zoning district or a commercial zoning district. The conditional uses are the same as they are in the residential zoning district. So if this were zoned residential, we would still be able to see this application come forward. In the zoning code, you'll find a section that says conditional uses applicable to all residential zoning districts, and that includes the ability to pursue a conditional use for wireless facility. So that applies to both RD and residential.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. So for Zach online, he just was asking if it was for a better spot. So, Planning Commission comments, thoughts, Emily? Looks like you said something.
Yeah, Sonia, I had a question with what you were saying. So if there weren't the already non-conforming conditions for this lot, would it then go back to 5 acres or 1 with Planning Commission approval?
That would only apply if we were creating a new RD lot.
Okay. So since it's an existing lot, that's why we can do it, because it's already non-conforming?
Correct.
Okay.
So following up on that, we don't have a size standard for a lot that would house a cell tower?
We do not.
Is that unusual that we don't? Do other municipalities have minimum lot sizes that are larger than, what is this lot? This lot is how big?
Yeah, I haven't verified that, but I'm not familiar with other municipal ordinances on telecom facilities and if they have a minimum lot size. However, I think the wireless siting law and the state statute in Chapter 66 discusses what we can regulate, and I don't see minimum lot size in there either. So even if we did have a minimum lot size, or if another municipality did have a minimum lot size, I'm not sure if it would be valid. But perhaps the applicant could address that question better.
Yeah, so the state statute talks about setbacks. It doesn't prescribe any minimum lot size, but it does talk about setbacks, and what it requires is that the applicant furnish some sort of support for if the tower were to collapse or something were to happen to it. What would occur in that case? And we have a fall zone letter in the application packet from an engineer, a sworn letter saying that the tower would collapse upon itself. Based on that, it's our position that we would be in compliance with the state statute on size and setback.
So as I understand it from the staff report, the tower in an extreme wind condition would bend rather than fall.
Correct.
Where would it bend?
It's essentially designed to fold upon itself. If you could envision, it's not a very good description, but taking a drinking straw and bending it in half from the top to the bottom, with the base of the tower remaining intact and both pieces still standing within its current footprint.
So the tower is, this is 120 feet tall, is that correct?
Correct.
So at what height would it bend?
It's going to be roughly in that 60-foot range.
Roughly?
Yes.
So isn't it designed so that it would bend in an exact place?
No, and again, the science that the industry utilizes and recognized by the federal government, the ANSI standard, I think they're on Chapter G now. Those tower standards have been updated over the decades, utilizing their criteria for both wind and ice loading for this particular region. Those design criteria would be different here in Wisconsin than, say, they would be in Missouri or someplace else. But utilizing those standards, the engineer says that the tower will fold and remain in its footprint.
Okay, so if it folds at 60 feet, yeah, that's probably okay. Or higher than 60 feet, that's probably okay. If it folds at 40 feet or 20 feet, that's not okay.
And again, if you, as part of the application, that engineering letter states that it would have a 0-foot fall radius.
That's a certified engineering opinion.
Well, that's very impressive, but I'm just asking a simple question. How is the tower engineered so that we know that it wouldn't bend less than, at a spot less than 60 feet from the ground?
Sir, I am not the tower engineer.
Well, maybe you need to get one here then.
Well, we have provided the engineering letter from the tower manufacturer.
And it's certified, thank you. We heard that. I'd like someone to explain how this tower actually works. This is a very serious situation. And on a half-acre lot, if this tower bends at 20 feet off the ground, it can hit another house when it falls. So if you guys have an explanation for that we can all understand, which obviously you don't tonight, it'd be nice if at some point in the future you could provide it. This would have been the time to really have the explanation for this question. So following up on another concern that was raised, tell us about the impact of lightning on this tower and how that would impact other houses that are nearby, given the size of this lot.
Valid question. The tower itself and the ground beneath the tower and its concrete foundation, it has a lightning attraction system, the lightning rod at the top tip of the tower, that gathers that energy and suppresses it immediately into the ground beneath the tower.
Okay.
So it's actually in all of the Alliance We Energies folks that I have talked to, they recognize that in areas that are prone to lightning strikes, certainly a metal tower that's taller than most anything else in the area may attract more lightning, but because of the design, it will dissipate that energy into the ground, actually provides protection to trees and other things that are in the immediate vicinity of the tower.
Okay, thanks. That's all I've got.
Emily, looks like you might have.
Oh, Ed, so to your question about what other municipalities have, I was looking on the City of Madison's website, and they have no mobile service support structure shall be located on a lot in a residence district unless said lot is greater than 2 acres in area and the principal use is other than residential. So, for what it's worth.
So it has to be at least a 2-acre lot if it's in a residential district.
The problem is I think this lot is not a residential lot. It's in a residential neighborhood, but it's not a residential lot.
Right.
Sonia, I guess I just have one question for you. I know that telecommunications industry has a lot of lobbyists, and they have a lot of people that put laws on the books to limit local ability to even say no on something like this. I mean, I think the location is terrible. If we vote no, does that really mean anything?
Yeah, so my basic understanding of the wireless siting law and how it relates to our requirements is that our hands are fairly tied. The wireless siting law says that you can only regulate a tower in a few certain ways. For example, the search radius, my understanding is that the applicant has the ability to define the search radius. The city's ordinance says 1 mile, but that's not actually valid because they can define a search radius that's smaller, that works for the coverage that is needed, and then they can provide a sworn engineer statement that proves that. I think we'd have to consult with our own city attorney in terms of next steps rather than sort of doing a legal review at the meeting. When we come up to the situation of potentially tabling an application or not taking action, we always need to be concerned with shot clocks. And that's not something that I can verify too on the spot here, but I do believe there might be a 90-day shot clock on this application. And that means that if the application is complete and the city doesn't take action within 90 days, then it's automatically approved. I could definitely be wrong on that. I'm not our city attorney, but it's just something to be aware of, that if the Plan Commission does decide to table this.
Do you know where we are right now in that 90 days, roughly?
I think it's usually from submittal, which was 4 weeks ago.
Okay, so next meeting we should be within the 90 days still if we tabled things. Yes. Okay. Steven?
Yeah, I think my biggest question comes down to the co-location. It was less than 2 years ago we approved a tower on South Fish Hatch, and at that time the applicant they were the only member that was going to be on that tower, so that all towers are built basically for at least 3, and so you are representing 2 different entities. What is wrong, or why was that not a viable option for you?
That particular tower was, I believe, constructed for U.S. Cellular. I don't know the measurement precisely, but almost 2 miles south of this location. It's just simply too far away to provide the coverage that either Verizon Wireless or Dish Network need to attain from in this particular area.
Randy?
You know, I wasn't even familiar with this area until I attended your informational meeting. I am an elected official, and this is not my district. I drive by on Fish Hatchery all the time, didn't know it existed. So after the informational meeting, I took a drive, and it's a beautiful area. You should be proud of your neighborhood. It's gorgeous, trees, and if I have my way, I'm going to vote against this, just for that reason. But I suspect that we've done everything that we can, or we've done everything that we are required by law, and I suspect it's going to be a no, we don't, and our hands are tied. But, oh, it's not that. I'm not afraid. I'll vote no, but I suspect we're going to have to table it, just as the mayor said, or postpone it. I think based on statutes and everything else, the city is probably going to be locked in, even though if we all vote no. I'm kind of getting that indication at this point in time.
Yeah, I think, well, yes, but what is your question? Can you speak into a microphone, please?
To build this that don't interfere with neighborhoods, why must it be there? That's my
So for people online, the question is, there's other lots that are not essentially in a neighborhood that seem to be close by. Why would that be? Why are those not an option, or why are those not chosen, if you will?
Yeah, I guess seemingly close by and in the right location maybe are two different topics. I do know that in the several years that Verizon has been looking for a location for this facility within their search area so that the tower is broadcasting and receiving to meet up with. Oh, I'm very sorry. I thought I was being able to be heard. For the several years that Verizon has looked for a location to broadcast and receive their signal so that it ties in with the rest of their network, they have exhausted the entirety of this search area that's part of your application. So I would have to think that the locations that have been mentioned, I don't know specifically where those are. But again, the search area and part of that RF sworn statement that's included in the packet, they have exhausted their options, and this is the location that they came up with.
So I think the other thing that's important to consider is beyond the search ring is what properties are available within the search ring. And for those properties, which property owners would be willing to enter into a lease to accommodate a tower. You heard from the public comments tonight, one of the people in opposition said they wouldn't want the tower on their property, but they're within the search ring. So that's the other difficulty that the carriers face when they're siting a tower within these limited and defined geographic areas.
You're making that up, my friend. Nobody ever.
All right, oh, sir, I'm sorry, please.
Nobody ever asked.
All right, any other planning commissions with questions or thoughts at all? Stephen, looks
I
like you
move
might
to
have
table. Can we do them all? Do we have to take them separately?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question before we
Go for it.
get there? We've got 3 items related to this in front of us tonight. How many of these have to be approved by council as well?
Right, I believe the TFP is the only one, the telecommunications permit. The conditional use permit does not, and the architectural design review does not. The plan commission approves those.
Okay. So for those to be approved, they would have to be acted on by this body tonight or at some other point.
Or some other point, we could postpone it for
But with
a month.
regard to the TFP, that is something that is the council's final decision.
Correct.
And prior to a council meeting, we could get the attorneys involved. Perhaps the applicant can provide an answer to the question with regard to the engineering of the structure, which concerns me quite a bit. I would be inclined to deny the TFP, move that on to council, and table the other 2 items. I think we take a little stronger position on that by doing that, without eliminating our ability to approve this if this is in fact what we have to do.
And to answer your other question, we should do these all separate motions.
So I'm going to take a crack at a motion to deny TFP 2408-21.
Second.
All right, seconded by Stephen. Did you get that?
So deny by,
Ed and Stephen seconded.
okay, thanks.
All right, so this is a little bit weird, but all in favor of denying, say aye.
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 And opposed to denying, say nay. All right, so that is approved to deny, and that will go on to city council based on what Sonia said. All right, so that's F. And then for G, I think I do have to officially open the public hearing. We've heard from the public on all these items. I don't think there's anything additional at this point. So we'll close the public hearing, but then if there's anything additional, or if you want to continue making motions, Ed, this seems to be your
No, I
next
think,
motions.
no, I think Stephen is ready to jump in.
All right.
A hot seat. I move to deny CU 2409-21.
And so not postpone it, deny this one?
Or are we postponing? See,
Yeah.
Ed, I thought you were going to take it.
Yeah, I was thinking if, those are the two that this body has to act on, and potentially someone's going to tell us that we have to approve this.
Got it.
So if we table those two.
Okay.
Postpone them. Postpone them for a month.
Yes, because we've already discussed it. So I move to postpone CU 2409-21 for a certain date of next month.
Second.
Sent by, I think I heard Randy first. All right, all in favor of postponing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, nay. All right, and then we've got H, the ADR.
I move to postpone ADR 2863 Delview Drive for a certain date of next month's meeting.
Second.
Sent by Emily. All in favor of postponing, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is postponed as well. All right, thank you. All right. Moving. Yes, sir. Do we belong to League of Wisconsin Municipalities? Yes. Yes, we do. All right. Next up is I, public hearing and comprehensive development plan 240621. Fahey Fields, we have a number of people here for that. And I don't know who wants to speak first. Welcome back, Brian.
Okay, you want to lead us off then? Yeah, it's good to be back. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight.
And Sonia, if you could pull up the presentation, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for the chance.
Thank you. You don't look like David Fahey, though.
Yes. We changed halfway through the development.
Is there anything you want to say while we're getting that?
Yeah, why don't I give a little bit of history? Why is Viridian here? We are excited to be working on this side of town now, as opposed to the other side, where we're wrapping up Crescent Crossing and good old North Storm Prairie development, which I'm happy to see be complete. And now, have been looking for the next opportunity to work in Fitchburg, but also really try and bring something that we've been kind of perfecting in Verona and Wanakee and Madison, and now we've found kind of an area that's been large enough for us to roll this out here in Fitchburg. And it's really an economic diverse development that takes houses of all different price points and blends them in the same neighborhood together. And we've been working with the Fahey family here through the summer about trying to master plan the remaining area of their development and kind of lay this out and bring it to Fitchburg. So I'm very excited tonight to present this and roll it out for everyone to see and what we're trying to do here. So with me tonight is Brian Munson, the planner, and then Dan Day from D'Onofrio, our engineer. Mr. Fahey and Mr. Heinrichs are here as well, but we're taking the lead on the development for this project tonight. We've also got representatives, I believe, from the multifamily and the school here as well. But again, we're taking this concept plan through and are excited to share it with you tonight. All right. If we keep going here, again, that's the intros. Building homes that enrich lives and realize dreams. That's really been the slogan of Veridian since they were formed in 2000, when Midland and Don Simon merged, and really have gotten very good at building and developing neighborhoods and communities throughout Dane County, which everybody's familiar with. Our neighborhoods take on an appeal and a life of their own, and we're excited to roll this one out in next to McGaugh Park over here in Fitchburg. The next slide just talks about our guiding principles and how did we base this. What is the kind of the background or the groundwork for doing something like this? And the first step, we have 3 guiding principles: housing variety. We integrate housing options in both format and price point. That's key. What you're going to see tonight is really a diverse mix of housing price points, all the way from entry level, which, you know, we're targeting that high 200 range. We are the developer builder, so we have control of our price points. We will not be selling any of these lots to other builders. This will all be Veridian. We'll have the entry level to move up to luxury to downsizer, all in this neighborhood here, adjacent to and extending from Fahey Fields. We anticipate the luxury going for probably $700,000-800,000, and I'm able to talk price points even in today's uncertain economic climate when it comes to material cost and labor shortage and everything else. We've done a fairly good job of keeping our prices in line. We have seen some increases in some materials that's caused the cost of housing to go up, but we're doing a good job of, you know, using our buying capacity to try and keep prices in line as best we can. The other thing is vibrancy. We blend architectural diversity with people-friendly designs. This neighborhood specifically will have over 100 different floor plans and 700 different elevations available. So there will be a wide variety of elevations and floor plans in this neighborhood. It's something that we're excited to really open up our portfolio and make as many different types of housing available to the public as we can. And then finally, sustainability. It's something that's very important to Fitchburg. We worked hand in hand with Fitchburg on it, especially in our stormwater developments. And we've even gone as far now to hire an outside agency that will come in and manage our stormwater basins 3 years after we've finished developing a neighborhood, and come up with a seed planting mix and a maintenance program and manage these basins for the city before we then hand off to the city. So we're not stuck with situations like what's happened to Fitchburg in the past, i.e. Seminole Glen, a few other old ones that the basins were left unkept by the developer and caused a lot of disruption. We now have a plan in place and are working with Fitchburg staff to make sure everything is turned over as it should be. So the Fahey property, with me tonight is my planner, Brian Munson. He'll explain a little bit about the demographic of the buyer that we're targeting out here and the customer, and kind of paint the picture of what's going to be built out in this area.
All right, well, thanks, Chris. Again, anytime we start looking at a piece of property, we start with what do the adopted plans call for. We take a look at what surrounds us. And of course, in this location, having recently been added to and amended within the neighborhood plan, it's in the urban service area, it's adjacent to McGaugh Park, a variety of both employment active uses to our northwest and a variety of housing, we felt this was a great candidate for a very diverse housing mix in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Stepping a little bit closer, you can see typical of sites in this area of Fitchburg, we have rolling topography. So when we try to develop a plan, we take the site into account. We start to look at not just where the streets are adjoining us, but how does the site inform the street grid, the mix of uses, and the placement of uses within the neighborhood. And of course, as I said, we start with the plan. So the adopted plan that was amended this summer calls for R1 residential in a majority of the site, and that is a minimum of 5 dwelling units per acre. R2, slightly higher density, consistent with the neighborhood to the north and the housing to the north, is a minimum of 10 dwelling units per acre or above. And then, of course, we also have an institutional use and a school use in this case. So we took that as kind of the framework and then developed a neighborhood out of that. Next slide, please. And this is what it starts to look like. So what you see here is a full street grid and design for the entire property, illustrating the different types of houses that'll happen on the single-family spectrum, locating the multifamily in the northwest corner, and then, of course, delivering the school. So when you look at this map, you can see, in addition to the street grids, we're anticipating incorporating a variety of different single-family types, so all the different color gradations, the darker colors being the smaller lots, transitioning out to some of the larger lots to the south. You can see that diversity of housing beyond just the types of houses that are going to be built, but the lots that they will fit in and the ability to deliver different formats of housing throughout the neighborhood is established by the grid system and the design of the overall neighborhood. Accenting that, of course, we have parks and open space. So as I mentioned up front, being very close to McGaw Park, which is a great large community asset, we wanted to achieve a couple of things. Number one was create opportunities for some trail connections. So if you look at the parks and open space map within the comprehensive development plan, you can see a trail system that will extend from the multifamily down to the stormwater and then up to the northeast and connect to the area just south of the new pickleball courts. In addition to that, we've created smaller neighborhood scale parks to give choices of outdoor recreation for the residents, depending on where they are in their lifestyle. So you'll see some folks that would like the active uses in McGaw Park, they have immediate access to it. If you're looking for something that's more scaled to a tot lot or neighborhood scale spaces, we have some smaller playground areas available within the plan itself. And then, of course, the final piece of that is the stormwater management, which we have to make sure we're doing our part to make sure we're addressing both the stormwater management, how it's treated on site, but then the design of it, opening it up as an outdoor room and having that be an asset for the neighborhood as well. So that is all the pieces that start to come together, but you can see the basic framework of the neighborhood plan with the extension of Nobel, the placement of the multifamily, the placement of the school site, and then the residential spanning the balance of the site. Next slide, please. As Chris mentioned, in addition to a diversity of lot sizes, this is really designed to appeal to a diversity of home buyers and people that are looking for housing within the city of Fitchburg. We have the ability on a site this big to be able to span that full spectrum from first-time home buyer all the way to up to luxury downsizers. The multifamily offers opportunities for rental in several different formats as well. And then we have both single-family, twin home, and multifamily pieces that accent that. Next slide. Just to quickly walk through, and I would note, I think similar to what we did with Crescent Crossing, all the pictures in this slideshow are from Viridian neighborhoods. So you can see these aren't just ideas on paper. These are built environments that have been around for 20 plus years. So we appreciate the inputs from staff. We've been working closely with them to help address any of the technical questions. But by and large, these neighborhoods are proven to maintain their value, be appealing to residents, and offer enjoyable additions to the communities that they're in. And so with that, just to walk through the components, again, we have 12 twin home lots. These would be owner-occupied, fee simple, so there'd be a lot line down the party wall that would allow for sale product in a detached format. Again, an opportunity to diversify the price points being offered in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. The next stage would be our Carriage Lane single family. So we have 136 Carriage Lane single families, or off of an alley with a variety of different lot sizes. And it's important to note that the Carriage Lane single-family homes, the easiest way to distill it down is if you took a conventional single-family lot, took the garage off the back and put it in the backyard, The house remains the same, and that's the case here. The houses that are being proposed on the carriage lanes offer comparable living space as the front load with different living environments. So different open spaces, different price points, and different choices to be made by residents of the neighborhood, but allows us to offer a variety of different price points and lifestyles that appeal to people in different segments of their lifestyle. Next slide, please. Next slide, then. The final piece of the single family being 121 conventional single family. So again, this allows us to diversify the lot types, the floor plans, the elevations. Next slide. So that, again, the idea is to have a neighborhood where you could buy your first home, potentially move up, move down, move laterally, however you want to do it. The opportunity to find housing in this neighborhood will meet the demands of the community. Next slide. Another point that we make is looking at the architecture. So all of the designs are on a common thread so that things like the garage placement, the focus is placed not on the garage, it's recessed so that the focus is on the porch, the focus is on the front door, the living environment. And so the interplay between the residential allows us to mix and match different unit types, different house configurations, access configurations, in a common architectural thread that ties them all together. Next slide. Next slide. The final two elements of the neighborhood, of course, we mentioned the multifamily component in the northwest corner as called for in the neighborhood plan. We have 228 apartment homes being proposed. This would offer both townhome opportunities as well as interior hallways. So even within the multifamily, you see diversity of housing being delivered and diversity of unit sizes so that you'll have a full spectrum of choices for renters to consider when they're looking at the neighborhood. This, of course, will also be seeking a separate approval process beyond the CDP. They will be going towards a plan unit development as well, and that will be in front of this body in the coming months. Next slide. The final element of the neighborhood is the 5-acre school site that St. Ambrose School has expressed an interest in, designing and looking at. This is consistent with what was adopted in the neighborhood plan, positioned exactly as it was called for, and really excited about the opportunity to integrate that into the neighborhood. Much like the multifamily, they will be seeking additional approvals down the line as they are able to come forward with more designs. Next slide, please. The final pieces to just walk through very briefly, next slide, is of course our parks and open space. And you can see here, as I mentioned earlier, the idea that the open space offers opportunities and corridors for connections of trails extending from the northwest as the trail exists, down through the site to the stormwater, and then back up to McGaw Park. And along the way, tries to interconnect the different pocket parks and neighborhood parks that serve this neighborhood, and also opening up the stormwater management to not just be an engineered solution, but actually an environment that people would want to walk in. Next slide, please. As you said, all of these, we're excited to work closely with the city to design and implement. Something we've done in many of our neighborhoods is actually making an opportunity to put those parks in up front so that it's not one of the last pieces to be installed in neighborhoods, which often happens in some communities, but becomes an asset that is available for the first homes that move in all the way through when the last home is built. And we'll work very closely with the city on the design and implementation of those, and we're excited to go to the Parks Commission in early November to discuss that component. Next slide. As we said, trail connections are an important component in addition to sidewalks. So we'll have the full network of sidewalks along both sides of every street. We'll have trail connections. So really we see this as an opportunity to extend the community to the south and offer folks that can walk connections throughout the neighborhood that serve both our residents and the neighborhoods to the north. Next slide. The final piece being stormwater management. And again, our goal is to have these not just be a basin, but actually be part of the open space delivery for the neighborhood. Have it be part of the experience that people can come and interact with and enjoy, whether for passive recreation, just a corridor to go through on a trail, or to look out the back decks. We see these as a component of the neighborhood that should be celebrated and treated appropriately. So we're excited to work with you enhancing those basins to become both environmental assets as well as functional infrastructure pieces. Next slide then. So that brings us back to where we started, which was the overall concept. And I think we touched on most of everything, but if there's anything you want to add, Chris, I think we'd be happy to answer questions too.
Yeah, no, just again, everything that you see before you will be fee simple, for sale, single family. So that being said, any questions?
All right, well, we'll pass staff report first.
Okay, lots of detail in the applicant's presentation, so I'll just go through quick, but first question is compatibility with the land use plan. we verified that to be true. Applicant already mentioned in the R1 areas, it's a minimum density of 5 dwelling units per acre, and they're at 7.9 net density for the single family and the twin homes. In the R2 areas or the multifamily, that's a minimum density of 10 dwelling units per acre. With the 228 units, they're at 22 dwelling units per acre. I think the biggest thing that we wanted to point out and discuss, and I'll just bring up their site plan here. Just to point out the lots that have a little bit different configuration than in some of our other residential subdivisions. So I'll point out 3 areas. The lots here on the western quadrant of the site, their frontage is on a park rather than on a public street. And then you have that condition up here near the school and a smaller situation over here. And then finally along this private open space. So typically, lots are required to have 50 feet of frontage on a public street. However, our ordinance can make an exemption to that, and it does for PDD zoning, and we've done it before. Crescent Crossing has lots situated similarly on Minong Lane, and then I do believe this condition exists elsewhere in some of the examples they were providing, like Grandview Commons, which is out on Highway B in Madison. The primary concerns here that we've just been discussing are sort of addressing and wayfinding, and then public safety, fire access to make sure that these lots can get adequate, access from our fire truck and make sure that turning radii are considered. So if you look over on the east side of the site, for example, there's this these 2 alleys that sort of tee into an intersection. That might make it a little bit more difficult to get fire truck movements around in that area, so that's something that the applicant is looking into. And then for addressing and wayfinding, to be verified with the applicant, but I believe our solution or concept at this point would be to keep these alleys as private lanes, as they were always anticipated, but to name them. That's not something that we have in like smart code, for example. They're just alley-loaded homes, and it's just an alley that's unnamed. But I think in this situation, we might be able to, that might be a simple solution. I don't know if the applicant has more ideas there, but that's some of the kind of things to point out with those alley-loaded homes. I think they covered sort of parkland dedication, stormwater. It is going to Parks Commission soon, as noted. The utility plan has been in the hands of Public Works being reviewed at the concept level. I'll just note for the record that this will require upsizing of the Syene Interceptor, which is outside of this roughly 90 acres, and it's up near the Lacey and Syene intersection. So in order to provide the capacity needed, this development needs to update that from 12-inch interceptor to 15 inches. And then finally, the second item on here is also the pre-app PDD. The applicants justified sort of the how the existing lots would not meet the standard zoning districts, and that's largely lot size and setbacks, and then how it would result in a greater environmental design and amenity. I think that's been explained here in the presentation. So then if this CDP is approved and the pre-app PDD moves forward, I think one of the next steps that we would see is a preliminary plat together with the GIP, or General Implementation Plan zoning. And I think I'll leave it there.
All right, then I will open the public hearing next, and I have Grant. Did you want to speak? No? All right, you're just answer questions available. He's from St. Ambrose Academy, so he's available to answer any questions. I also have David DeFahey registered in support of the matter and also available to answer questions. And also Greg Held is registered in support of the above matter and also available to answer questions. And that is all I have for public comments. I can close the public hearing and open it to Planning Commission. It looks like you're ready to go.
I'm going to recuse on this item.
Okay. All right. Other comments at all? Stephen, looks like you're ready.
Yeah, I think as staff has pointed out, the alley access, it makes sense from a kind of walkable, livable place, but I'm thinking about you have friends coming to visit, family coming to visit, you're moving in and out. How do you physically do that? Because there's not even parking other than, what does that look like for this community, I guess?
Sure. So we've been working on comparable projects. So Grandview Commons, the neighborhood that Sonia mentioned on the east side of Madison, has been in place now for almost 20 years, dating our team, I guess, a little bit.
We are dating them,
And so we've had a lot of experience in looking at both the green fronting lot configuration as well as the alley access, so kind of a standard alley product. And the design of those alleys, the simplest way to distill it is they function a lot like a drive aisle in a parking lot, in any retail parking lot. In terms of the turn movements to get in and out of the garages, any size vehicle can get in and out of those alleys back and forth in terms of the ability to get in and out and move-ins or things like that to have ample room and access from the alley. In terms of the ones that front on the parks, these we've been doing in multiple communities throughout Dane County, and they've been very successful and very, very well received by the residents in that the parks become kind of the extension of their front yard. They're designed so you still have a traditional sidewalk configuration that sets the location of what's private and what's public. So you still have a sidewalk access point out. And we've designed these in different communities almost always, well, actually in all of our alley-loaded product, we put a street number on the front and a street number on the back because we recognize that people will come and go from both locations, so knowing that is important. We have had named alleys, so we're comfortable with that approach as well. And so from a circulation standpoint, they give great access to those lots. Having said that, one of the things we also think about is, well, where's the pizza delivery go? And so looking at those sidewalk connections, making sure that there are opportunities for direct connections out to the streets, signage, lighting along those paths, things that help make sure that people know that they can get to those houses and where to park and how those can come and go for guests is something we've worked at very closely and have been successful in implementing in other neighborhoods. I think the biggest piece is when you look at these pocket parks and smaller neighborhood parks is that the visibility in the sight lines of the front door is still there. They're not hidden places. They're not kind of inset curves or areas where you can't see. If I park here and walk down the sidewalk, I get to the front door so that is clearly set up in the grid and the ability so that each of those houses have access. And as we design those spaces, we'll be looking at making sure that they're desire lines. So if there's spots where people want to get better access out to the streets, we'll design those with additional sidewalk connections across the green spaces as well.
So are you just looking at the map, very middle of the map, you've got that park where it kind of curves up to the northwest. So if I'm in one of those one of those lots, like right there.
Yep.
I got friends coming to visit me. They're going to park on that closest street to the west, and then there's sidewalk access in between every couple of those lots? Is that what you're saying?
No, there'll be a sidewalk. So how about this? I don't have a laser pointer with me, so I'll use the...
Can you use the microphone so people can hear you online?
But a microphone helps, yes.
And this might seem like a very, minutia point, but when we're looking at this being such a large majority of this development, I think it warrants some discussion. So.
Oh, absolutely, I'd agree. And so if you lived in one of these houses here, you've got multiple choices. There's a sidewalk that will span all the way across the front, so a typical configuration, front porch to sidewalk. We will also be looking at having additional connections so that if you're closer to the north end, if you're 3 or 4 houses in, there's on-street parking to the north. There's all the on-street parking that would be available to the southeast with additional sidewalks that would then come out and serve. And there would be a sidewalk along that side of the space as well.
I don't know how familiar you are with Swan Creek, but there's a bunch of condos in Swan Creek where the essentially porch or the front door is on the path system, and there's a sidewalk to that as well. So there's a few places in the city where that's the case right now. Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to follow up with that, just sort of the clarification, because we do have a situation in Fitchburg now where we're running into some issues where there's an alley and there's no on-street parking, but, well, at least they think there's no on-street parking, but there are people parking. So are you saying that you're going to have an alley and then you're also going to have the on-street parking as well? I mean, that is available?
Yes, so the designs of the streets are wide enough to meet the city ordinance for double-sided parking on both sides.
Okay.
And that's intentional. We've looked at these neighborhoods and studied the parking demand of mixed residential neighborhoods. and in very minute detail. And we can tell you that roughly about 13% of the on-street stalls are used at any given time with a neighborhood with comparable parking like this. Each of the alley-loaded single-family will have 2 off-street parking stalls in the garage, accessible from the alley, and then guest parking and event parking happens within the streetscape. And so when we look at the design of the streets, those are intentionally designed to make sure we have that space for on-street parking for those event uses. But that the overall distribution, since if you look at the balance of the neighborhood, the front-loaded single-family will have 2 parking stalls in the garage, maybe 3 for some lots, but then 2 parking stalls in the driveway as well. So
there is room in the driveway.
Yes, within the conventional single-family.
Sure.
And so the balance of having a mixture of alley single-family and conventional single-family delivers parking distributed throughout the neighborhood, so you don't have kind of peak loads in specific locations. And so in a vast majority of the neighborhoods, we've found that approach means that the on-street parking is readily available for the event occurrences where people are coming to sites like the alleys that don't have guest off-street parking.
And not familiar with this, but this particular type of design, who maintains the alley? Does the city, as far as storm?
Those will be private. They'll be privately maintained, yes.
Okay. That's all.
I just had a couple of comments. This is another one where, to the developer's credit, they first came back and there's a little bit more rental than there is now, and provided feedback that we'd like to see more home ownership. And to the development team's credit, they did come back with more of this 50-50 balance. I also like the variety of rentals in this, where you have some 8 units, some 14 units, not all these 140, 160 unit monoliths. So I do appreciate that. I think that having a wide variety of housing options is also really attractive when you talk about, healthy, walkable neighborhoods. So I think that, this is a really nice neighborhood, and I'm happy to see this going forward. I think the only problem I have is that Brian is from Vanderwall, who is not my favorite company right now.
Understood.
Any other comments at all? Emily?
I would just say I really appreciate the mix of housing and how it really seems like someone could spend their whole lifespan there. And it just seems really well thought out and like a nice neighborhood to live in.
Viridian does have a lot of resale to existing owners in their portfolio. That happens significantly, that they buy 1, 2, or 3 homes from Viridian over the years.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Actually, Emily, I'll point out, they don't have any senior housing, and so I think this has to be denied. Everything needs to have senior housing. You're missing something, apparently.
We have active adult, which is 55 and older, so we're not quite there yet. Yeah.
Anything else? Or motion from someone? As this recuse themselves.
I'll take care of Ed's here. I'll move to approve CDP 2406-21 with the 9 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And then abstention from Ed. All right. And then Jay, anything additional on the pre-app?
No, we tried to include as much information as we could on the zoning application that's is the next stage. Wanted to make sure we had ample opportunity to discuss that with staff. So, we're happy to move into that next stage fairly quickly.
All right. Any other additional comments or a motion?
I don't think we need one here, do we?
Was that Zach?
For the pre-app, I don't think we need one.
Oh wait, that's true.
That's correct.
I think that's correct. I think it's just informational.
Looks great. I think no additional comments for the pre-app. All right. Then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. All right. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, the resolution R19221, a relocation order and TPP related to construction of Lacey Road from Fitchburg to Badger State Trail. Sonia, you want to take this?
Yeah, thanks. This resolution is necessary to keep the Lacey Road reconstruction project moving forward, and it would authorize the relocation order, which is the first step in purchasing property through eminent domain in order to construct the road as proposed, and then the transportation project plat for the actual road standards. That's all I have.
Any questions, comments? It's a part of the road that badly needs to be made safer and improved, so that's a good thing for us. And there's development starting to happen along that corridor already, as you saw earlier tonight. Anything else? Or a motion? Anyone?
I'll move to approve Resolution R 19221.
Second.
Thank you, Zach. Seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Report from department. Sonia?
Our next meeting is November 16th, and usually we don't give a preview of applications, but I think we've only received 2 by today's deadline. One is the PDD GIP, General Implementation Plan, request by Inventor Capital on Ochala Drive. We did look at that a couple of months ago. I think it's at 165 units with the 10,000 square feet of commercial, so between Fish Hatchery Road and Index near the UW Credit Union. So that item will be coming forward, and then a minor PDD amendment for a building in Fahey Fields that they're looking to add a dog park amenity for their residents. So, and then we tabled our cell tower, conditional use permit, and ADR. So a couple of things there that will carry forward, but it will be good. Hopefully that it's a little bit of a lighter agenda to keep Lisa sane, as tonight is my last meeting. So that's it. I will note, I didn't prepare a speech. But I just want to say that I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to have worked here, and I never planned on leaving so soon. I really hate to be a short timer. I've been here for just over 3 years, and I've learned a ton and really, really enjoyed working with people, working really closely with Mike and all of you and the mayor, and Lisa's just been wonderful, and you'll be in great hands with her. And Wade in the planning department, and Phil as well. So again, just thank you for the opportunity. I sent an email to the Plan Commission that I will be accepting I have accepted another position, and I'll be joining Vandewall and Associates in a couple of weeks.
So you'll be able to follow up on all the things that we talked about tonight.
I'll be here, and you can grill
We'll
me
be
with
seeing
stuff.
you
Yep.
soon. Thank you for everything that you've done over the past 3 years, Sonia. You've done a wonderful job, and we're going to sorely miss you.
Thank you, Sonia. You have a terrific job.
I would echo that we're very sad to see you leave. Happy to say this is a great opportunity for you, but we're going to miss you. You've been great here and wonderful to work with, and so we'll still see you around, I'm sure, for different projects, but certainly sad to see you go, so thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. You'll be missed. And also, as a new member, I just wanted to say thank you again for all of the help as I joined.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I think Randy and seconded by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.